So, as mentioned, today's presentation will be on AI, specifically on a platform that we built at Vistra, which is an agentic AI tool. But before I dive in, just a little bit on Vistra, because most people haven't heard of it, and then once you find out about it, it's impossible to get away from us. So we're a large global corporate services provider, actually owned by the same company as WSO2, a Swedish private equity firm called EQT, operating in 78 countries around the world, 10,000 staff, and we do compliance. It's boring, but everyone has to do it. It's things like corporate secretarial work, accounting, tax, payroll, EOR, all of that stuff. We call it non-discretion, non-deferrable work. Now, Vistra is like most companies in the space that they're very analog. It's very email-based, back and forward, using Word, maybe using some software for some templates, some software for some checklists, a lot of manual generating of documents, sending them around for signing, and that's probably 80% of what we do. So here's a slide that won't go into too much detail. There's quite a lot actually in these slides. If anybody actually wants access to them, please email me. My details are on the last page. I'm happy to share these slides with anybody. But kind of going through the issues with the manual model that Vistra has had in the past. We deal with compliance. It's a fast evolving space. Honestly, we struggle to keep up with compliance, so our customers have no hope. There's a lot of work that has to be done at a local level, but it's quite similar. So the compliance you may need to do in Hong Kong is similar to compliance in Singapore. And traditionally, we've had local teams that have just duplicated the work. So even if you go through onboarding in Hong Kong, we'll make you do the exact same thing in Singapore. By the way, a lot of companies do this. HSBC does that. It does this as well, by the way. So we're trying to move to a more centralized, KYC and compliance platform. I think with the advent of with AI, a lot of customers now expect stuff in real time. Now, what they were happy waiting for 4 days a year ago, they now want done in real time. And if it takes a day, people now complain. So expectations around service levels, thanks to ChatGPT, have kind of gone through the roof. And our service teams now are under a huge amount of pressure and complaints if we don't turn things around really, really fast. Then the final one is not that we have a lack of domain expertise. I think everyone in the industry is pretty good at what they do, but there's a lot of bottlenecks with the way that work gets done. So the KYC compliance team is doing their work. The commercial team needs to wait for that to be done, before they can actually go and start billing the clients, and then they have to wait for finance to kind of log into the ERP system and see if the client's up to date with their payments. And there's just a lot of separate services going on that are all kind of loosely connected, and a huge amount of kind of email ping pong going on inside of our organization. So that's the problem set. And I'm going to try and whip through this in about 10 minutes so I can spend a little bit of time at the end to talk about our AI advisor. But in a nutshell, this is what it is. So like most AI, it's always on 24/7, obviously. It allows corporate actions to be done seamlessly. A corporate action may be adding a director to a company. So that traditionally would be a lot of email back and forward, both with our customers as well as internally, so allowing it to be done in close to real time on the platform. I'll share where we're at. We've not yet automated the whole end-to-end flow, but we're on that journey. Making sense of data. So a lot of companies, particularly our clients that are global multinationals, traditionally, for them to actually report on their entities, for example, to their board, may take them 2 to 3 weeks. In fact, most CFOs actually have no idea how many legal entities they even have. They lose them all the time. You'd be amazed. So being able to get them all in one place, being able to have AI to go and look through them and to see what's going on, see which ones are compliant, as well as also just kind of digging through documents to see if any entities are actually being missed can be pretty helpful. And then connecting with experts. So, I think with most AI platforms these days, and the reason why customers spend a lot of money with a Vistra, despite how frustrating they can be with the speed of service sometimes, is there's a huge trust element there. So what they could maybe do partly on ChatGPT for $5 a month, they happily pay us $1,000 a month because there's that trust layer. We will check things to make sure they're right, as well as also providing advisory services that they can rely on if the AI can't help. So without getting too much into this, it's I think the two main things to focus on: top left, top right. Obviously, guardrails are really important to ensure that users are not using our systems in any nefarious ways, and as well as their data is protected. So the one thing promise we have with our customers is none of their data is used to train any models that we leverage externally to Vistra, and internally the learning that we do is all anonymized. The final one is around this continuous learning and adaptation, as the previous speaker mentioned. Engineering is always an ongoing thing. With AI, it's ongoing as well. So ensuring that we continuously learn and see what's going on and evolve the platform is really important. And one of the areas that we've actually probably underinvested on initially, but now kind of catching up, is putting in place proper evals or evaluations of what's going on to make sure that we can measure things properly and we can continue to improve the AI service. I'll actually skip through that one. It goes over a lot with what was on the previous page, and I'm going to come back to the demo at the end. So I think these two slides are probably actually the most important. I'm going to get into the users as well as also the way that we use APIs, which is why we're here at the WSO2 conference. So it's, I think, before diving into that, just to mention, it's really built for both internal users as well as external users. I think a lot of applications sometimes forget about their internal users and build all for the externals, which are obviously important. But getting internal adoption, we found is critically important for getting external adoption. And a lot of the time, what the internal user is looking for is actually quite similar to external. So in another way, it's pretty hard to get colleagues to recommend a platform to their clients to use if we're obviously not really using it ourselves. So kind of winning them over and bringing them on the journey is really valuable. In terms of some examples of things that can be done, the example on the right-hand side there, which is something recent, where an enterprise with 500 entities needed to resign a director, and that would have traditionally probably taken 6 to 8 weeks to get done, to look through all the documents, to make sure that articles of association, basically governing documents, allowed this all to be done, have it checked, KYC compliance, etc. But with the platform, we're able to get that done in less than a week. So a nice pickup in performance for the customer as well as for our internal teams. Okay, so I'm not going to go the perimeter controls. Critically important. Again, if you guys like to see the deck, please ask. We're happy to send it. This stuff is really important. Layering, executing, governance, that needs to get done right at the start. Don't start at the top and then backfill for the start. Get those layers done properly. Guardrails, human oversight in the middle, and then that evaluation layer on the top. Okay, finally to APIs. So before I dive in terms of what the way we look at APIs, it's a combination of internal APIs, and those are APIs between our AI service. We're using Amazon Bedrock primarily as our AI service. We're looking at their new Agentic AI platform called Agentic as well. And then there's APIs that then communicate with our normal or other infrastructure using Lambda function calls onto EC2 instances. So there's APIs there. Now, where we use WSO2 Choreo is currently for our developer community. A little bit of kind of interesting perspectives from a private equity owner like ourselves. The value they put on a customer that connects with us through an API is around 5 times the value of a customer that integrates into our software, that logs into our software to work with us, and that's about 3 times more if they email us. So 5 times more value per dollar spent if they connect to it through an API than logging into our system. So, critically important for any of those out there that are looking at valuations of these companies to allow partners and customers to connect through APIs. What we did with our first launch partner is a company called Futu. They're a large online stock brokerage in China. The largest actually in China, around 20 million users. They use a lot of corporate services. A lot of high net worth in China will set up offshore legal entities, particularly BVI entities, to manage and hold their stocks. Typically, they would work with us on an email basis. They're now integrating into our system, where their end users straight through process into our system. So not only does it save time, it also means we get more of their business. So that WSO2 Choreo has been great for that, and that's what we plan to use as we build up that ecosystem into a lot more examples like that, and they've been fantastic to work with. The second thing is that we're using WSO2 for is integrating into internal applications. So ERP systems, we use SAP for HANA. There's a whole other group of systems that we use in HR and legal and so forth. Externally as well, obviously our customers are not just using our application, they're using other apps like Workday, like Xero, like QuickBooks, and the list goes on. And we'll be integrating into all those other systems, so clients can come into our environment and they can see a nice dashboard of everything that's going on in the other applications, as well as also being able to have data flow back and forward. And we'll be using WSO2 to manage those connections as well for that. Now, how it all applies to Agentic AI, I think that the simplest way to think about it is APIs are the contract, and the Agentic AI is the orchestrator. So what we mean by a contract is it's really just a list of things, explains what can be shared, it explains what format things can be shared. So it's like a legal contract. It just lives in the technology space. So that's kind of the way we think about APIs, is a contract with what can be shared and how and what format it can be shared in. So those are really important. Again, it's important to kind of get that plan around the APIs and what can be shared first and foremost before diving into the sexy, fun stuff that's Agentic AI. Because if the contracts are wrong, much like with the business, if your legal contracts are wrong, everything's probably going to suffer at some point, and it's quite hard to then reverse and retrofit it. Then in terms of the actual orchestrator, that's the one that's making use of those legal, in this case API contracts, to get work done. Not going to go over too much detail there, but there's quite a few things you can obviously do with the Agentic AI in order to train it to work in your way. I think the middle one, right-sizing the model, is really important. So just to share a bit of where we're at, like a lot of us in this room, we've been using off-the-shelf models. We use Anthropic, 2 models from them, Cloud, Sonnet 4, as well as Haiku. Haiku we use for conversational back and forward because it's a lighter model than the big one. It's good enough, and because it's lighter, the latency is much better. We are looking at fine-tuning our models going forward. In fact, we've just hired Suham from Amazon, who's joined the team recently from Amazon's research team in Bangalore, who's going to be help us looking at fine-tuning models going forward. It should reduce latency even further, hopefully increase quality, and importantly, not that it's a problem now, but it will become a problem, is bring the cost down, because although Anthropic is awesome, but if you use it a lot, the cost can go up quite a lot as well. In terms of some of the parameters, without getting too much into how some of this stuff works, just to kind of mention there's a few parameters that you can set. Temperature, top P, top K, on the models your agent's consuming, and they basically control how much freedom you give the models to basically figure out what they want to do. You can keep them on a very tight leash, which is getting close to deterministic software, or you can give them a very long leash to kind of do what they want. Pros and cons. In our space, given we're in compliance, we always have them on a very, 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 very tight leash. So a lot of those are set to very, very close to zero, which means that things might be a bit slower, take a bit more cost to get things done, but the answers are generally a lot less hallucination. The answers are generally much, much higher quality if that's not the case. Okay, well, I think sort of 7 or 8 minutes to go. I'm going to do what most marketing teams say should never do, which is give a live presentation. We'll have a go. I do have some fallback pre-recorded if there's any issues, but I think this should be fun. So this is the actual platform that I've been talking about. So this is where our customers manage all the legal entities. Not going to go through all the different features, but just focus on the actual conversational assistant here. So there's going to be 4 things I'd like to show today. So one is showing the honesty of Geni. We've been, because clients pay us a lot of money to get the job right, we're very clear on what she can answer and what she has to say, I don't know, speak to an advisor. So whereas we go to ChatGPT, it'll always give you an answer, but it may be wrong, it'll hallucinate. So I'll give you an example. I can tell you for sure there's no knowledge here with all due respect around Sri Lankan compliance. Hey, I'd like to start a company in Sri Lanka. What are the compliance considerations? So this is what's an off-topic thing, so it should come back and say, sorry, I don't know, please speak to an advisor. If it lies, I'm going to give Geni a slap, but she shouldn't be lying. And as mentioned, there's a bit of latency here because of all those settings are very, very conservative. It kind of takes around 10-15 seconds to respond. So there we go, good. It says, don't know, please speak to a Vistra person, and they can help out. So well done, Geni. I'll give you a thumbs up there. Yeah, that's it. All right, now something that I should know about. So BVI, Vistra is the largest agent of BVI entities, so it should know a bit about this. So let's copy that and drop it in and say BVI. Now, if it says it doesn't know this, then that's a problem in the opposite direction. You've got to come back with some information here. So this is advisory stuff. So a lot of what we do all day long is answering emails from clients about exactly these types of questions. And we actually charge a lot of money for it. There's actually a discussion around actually making this advice free, because these days knowledge is quite commoditized, and it's hard. We know that eventually these advisory fees are probably going to come down to zero. So there we go. So there's a lot of information there for BVI, which is good. And then, so that's on the advisory. The second one is on reporting. Hey, how many SG entities can I access? So this one is using this next one is using an API to access our backend. It's calling a Lambda function and then running EC2 instances that we have sitting in an island AWS zone. Can I access? Can I access on? Come up with the organization. So we call this reporting. This is quite basic. You can do more complex stuff as well if you're preparing for a board meeting and you want to get a list of all your entities or how many you've missed a filing on, or how many directors or shareholders you may have as well. You can do that. So give it a few seconds to come back. And it's come back and it's got an entity there. And then you go, cool. I'd like to add a director too. And then this is the actual workflow the agent's now starting to handle. So adding a director. And I'd say again, it does about 2 or 3 out of 10 steps right now. Then it's a handoff to an employee, to a staff member to do the rest. But over time, it'll be able to handle kind of more and more. So then it's coming back and asking a bunch of questions that it needs to then do this. If I was to go and fill all that in, once it's got everything that it needs, it then says thanks very much, and it goes off platform, and that's kind of where it stops currently. So that's Geni. Now, a lot of this is kind of just using internal AWS APIs, but as we start to surface up a lot of the external developer stuff, as well as also connecting into all these other platforms, then obviously leveraging what WSO2 is just naturally going to find its way onto the platform. And from a user perspective, they don't really care how it gets there, but on the back end, it's obviously very important, and WSO2 is going to be an important part of that. So that's really it for my presentation for today. Thank you all for your kind attention. My other dirty little secret, by the way, is I was born in South Africa, grew up in Australia. I tell my Australian friends I support the Australian cricket team, but actually I support the Proteas still. So if we can keep that in this room, that would be much appreciated. Thank you very much.